What I'm going to do now is, let's just have the page objects initialized. So over here in my test, I am getting the first name, right? But I'm not going to do this stuff over here. Let me just, okay, let's just copy all these lines first, right? Then we will delete it, put it over here. So instead over here in my constructor, I am just going to initialize these as aliases. Okay. So this is my ID, right? I can easily create aliases. So in my core concepts videos also I have covered aliases in details, guys, and why we need them. Alias, how we do, just we use as method, and over here I can just give it any name. I can give it any name, guys. So it's my first name, so let's just make it as name. Okay. And I'm not going to perform the actual operations over here, guys. Just be careful about it. So over here we are just initializing, we are just creating our aliases to be used later. Okay, so that is what aliases are for. You store them in the memory and then you can read them later when you are actually interacting with your elements, all right, on the web page. I'm going to get my last name as, let's say, last name, right? You can name it any simple variable, that is completely on your discretion. And let's say this is my email. Okay, so over here I have done nothing. I have just initialized my elements as aliases. So in my memory, cy.get, let's say, in, if you're from Selenium web background, so this will be just like a web element which is stored as name. Okay, it is actually a cy.get returns list of web elements, right? It just returns object list. It doesn't return a single element. So whatever is returned from here, it is stored as last name. So whatever is returned from here, it is stored as email. So as simple as that. So over here again, I'm not going to read my fixture files. Let me just delete this code. So basically I haven't touched my before annotation, but I did change my test case because in my test case I have to just interact with that form. So we will come back to this test spec later, but let's just be in object specs, and I'm going to make a method over here, input, let's say form data. Okay, so now as I'm going to perform actions over here, so I'm going to read the data from here. So I have initialized my elements. Now I'm going to just do cy.fixture. So the same thing that we have done in the test. Read the fixture form dot, then you catch that fixture in any element, let's say form data. And now since we have the entire .json data with us in this variable, now I'm going to do cy.get. So over here I need not write hash first name. So I'm just going to say cy.get @name. So that is how you can access aliases in Cypress. So you store them as a normal variables, you access them using @, you can say it as annotation or @. Okay, cy.get @name, and again the rest of the code remains the same. So it will be just form data dot, let's just be careful with the name this time. So $form data dot name, we stored it as name, I think. What was that? First name. So it was stored as first name. Okay, similarly, let's just copy paste it for all the three fields. This is stored as last name, and this is stored as email, and this one's my last name, I think. Spellings are correct. Yeah, and this is normal email. Okay, so far so good, guys. So we have just shifted from our test spec file to our objects file now. Now guys, in Java, if you would see, whenever you create the object of the class, so constructor is the first thing to be called, right? Over here, like whether it is a parameterized or it is a normal constructor or default constructor. Now in JavaScript, we cannot have multiple constructors. I have also covered that in my JavaScript videos, guys. So just go through the JavaScript videos as well, because I have covered lots of concepts which will help you in Cypress end-to-end framework building in my JavaScript tutorials. They are actually more targeted towards Cypress automation, apart from the normal JavaScript concepts. So now over here I'm going to create the object of the class. So what is my class name? So remember guys, your spec file, your form objects.spec.js is not your class name. Your class name is form, right? So don't get confused between this. So I have to create, let's say let obj equal to, let's give it a simple variable name, and this is how you create the object, new form. Okay, that's it. I have created the object of the class. Now I can just call that input form data. Okay, so this is what I'm just going to do in my test. I am just going to call different methods, right? I'm not going to store data here. So tomorrow, let's say my data changes, my XPath for this thing changes. I just need to change inside the constructor. I need not look it in different files or spec.js files just to change it. I know this is my form objects. I'll come here, and over here as well, I'll just come at the top and change it. I need not change my actual methods or actual lines of code where I'm interacting with my elements. Okay, so hopefully it should work now. But is there anything else that we are missing? Yeah, so guys, in JavaScript, or it is more specific in if you are building React applications also, so there is something known as export keyword, right? You need not know the details of it. So you have to use something export default form. So what it basically does is so in a layman term, it will take this class and put it in a global memory in JavaScript. Okay, so where everybody can read it. So right now it is just a simple form class file, but if everybody has to access it, so it has to be put it in some location so that any spec file can access it. So over here I have just exported this class file. Let's just assume it like this. I have exported this class file to a memory location where anybody can import it now. So since I have exported it, so this is very important guys, you have to export, and then over here you also need to import that class. So this is something almost similar to Java. So you export things and then you import it. Import what? Import form. What you have? You have page objects, and then you have form objects dot spec file. Okay, I think our test runner was open. I think it might have given that error while it was running. So where it's open, it's here. Where is it executing? So I think it's on here. Yeah, so form is not defined. You were getting this error guys. So because it couldn't read the form class. Now since I have exported it and imported it, if I save it now, it should hopefully work if we did everything right. So yeah guys, so we did everything all right, and it is doing the same thing but now in a nicer way. That's all guys. So this is now we have built our skeleton now. So this is how we will now structure the entire form data. So guys, now we have built the basic skeletal framework. Okay, now all we have to do is just interact with different elements. So from now on, I am going to cover few of the important things, where we will use force equal to force equal to true, which I have covered in one of my core concept videos, that why you need force is to force colon true. So this form element, these elements on these forms are so nicely placed, right? Like there are some difficult elements to interact with, right? So for those things you have to use some special cases within Cypress, right? And how to upload a picture and all these elements guys, they are different things, right? So if I start typing over here, you see it just gives me some suggestions. So how you handle such elements, how you upload a picture, and then how you select dates from date selector, how you interact with the radio buttons and your multiple checkboxes at the same time. For example, over here in form.json, if I see, this is how you can have multiple datas how you can store data as an array in a key, and then how you can split it up and read it. So these are some of the important things now that we are going to cover while we are covering the next part of the framework sessions. Otherwise, our skeletal is ready now.